Thank you. Let's do a screen share. And so we're going to just share our screen. There we go. Move this little guy down here. So launch Notepad++. Right. And so here's what we're going to do to start with. Notepad++ is just an enhanced version of Notepad, right? I mean, it works similar to Notepad. It's not a Microsoft product, but it basically is like Notepad in that you're just writing text. There's no kind of graphical aspect of this. There's no WYSIWYG experience. Has anybody ever heard that term, WYSIWYG? WYSIWYG stands for what? Let's see. What you see is what you get. And so there are products out there that we're about to learn HTML or kind of dip our toe in the HTML water so that we can construct web pages. Because your browser needs to know how to display your web page. And the way that it understands how to display it is using HTML and then also CSS, which we're going to talk about. There are visual editors out there that function kind of like Microsoft Word, where, you know, if I launch Word, I can go in here and I can say, this is a header. And I can take that guy and I can highlight it there. And I can say, I'm going to make it a header by making the text bigger, and I'm going to bold it. And maybe because it's a header, I'm also going to underline it, right? But then on this next line here, this is not a header. So I'm going to turn both of those features off, and I'm going to take it back down to 11. And I'm going to say, this is my main content. But this part of the content is really important. All right. So this part of the content, because that's important, I'm going to both bold it and I'm going to change it to a different color. All right. I'm going to make it that color. All right. So Microsoft Word has this visual interface that allows you to do that. There's buttons you can click to underline and bold. And if I want to do something like if I'm doing since you guys are big chemistry fans, I know you are, because I've taught several of you in chemistry. And so I know that's the kind of stuff that you think about at night as you're dozing off to sleep, you know, balancing equations in your mind. And so let's say you want to do a simple equation, like I want to do C plus oxygen. And I know that oxygen, there's got to be two of those, because those of you that are in the chemistry class know that oxygen comes in pairs because it is a homonuclear diatomic. Excellent. And so C plus O2 is going to yield CO2. But the problem with that is that that's not how we write O2, is it? So I'm going to make this whole thing a little bit bigger so we can see it. And what I need to do with the 2 here is I need to make that 2 a subscript. So I'm going to put it down there. Same thing with this 2 here, right? So Word has these nice clicking buttons that allow me to do that. Notice what Word did whenever I put dash greater than, it converted that and changed it into an arrow, right? So it's got a visual interface for doing all of that. Well, that's not the way Notepad works at all, right? If you launch just typical Notepad, it doesn't have any of that stuff in it. Notepad++ doesn't have any stuff like that in it. Notepad++ just lets you write HTML. It lets you write any kind of text document that you want to write. But the nice thing that Notepad++ brings to the table is that if I save this here as an HTML document, so I'm going to go to Save As, and I'm going to just save this on my desktop. You can save it wherever you want to. You know what? Let's save it in our documents. So all of you guys have Windows machines, so you should have a documents folder. That way they'll all be in the same place. So I want you to just create this new document, and I want you to save it in the documents folder. And I want you to save it, though, not as a text file. I want you to save it as a file named hello hello world, you can uppercase if you want to, hello world.html. So hello world.html should be the name of the file that you're saving, okay? Make sure there's no .txt at the end, that it's .html, all right? And so if we save that, make sure you uncheck this. See where it says append extension? By default, it was trying to save it as a text document, so it was going to slap .txt on there. So make sure you uncheck append extension when you go to save it. Now, when I save this, it says up here in my tab, hello world.html is the name of my document. And the text looks a little different than it did before. The reason it looks different is because Notepad++ understands HTML. And Notepad++ is trying to do some color coding so that we're clear what is HTML versus the regular content on the page. All right, that'll make a little more sense as we start learning how HTML works. But the benefit of Notepad++, let me put an HTML tag in here. So I'm going to make this guy be a header. And then I'm going to make this guy here be a paragraph. And so notice when I did that, Notepad++ says, oh, I'm going to make this a different color than the word WYSIWYG. And I'm going to make this a different color than the words what you see is what you get, because I recognize these as HTML tags. And so it uses color coding to help you pick out the HTML tags from the rest of the text that you have on the page. So it's smart like that. And that's why we're using Notepad++ instead of regular Notepad. Another thing Notepad++ does for us is like, this, for example, is a paragraph tag. If I hit a space bar here and start adding something to my paragraph tag that is normal HTML, like if I try to add a style attribute, I can start typing in style, and notice Notepad++ gives me all these options to choose from. So it says, hey, there's a style attribute. Is that what you're looking for? So I can just go down to that and click, let's see, what is it? Is it Control Enter? No, it's probably tab. Yeah, tab will make it go there. It works a little different than some of the other tools. And then so I can add a style tag if I want to. So that's why we're using Notepad++ instead of regular Notepad. We could use Notepad. It's just not going to give us these visual cues to help us construct HTML. But what it does not have, like I said, is it doesn't have all the stuff that Word has. So we have to learn how to write the HTML to make it look like this, right? If this is the content we're trying to build, then we've got to figure out how to do that in HTML. So what I want you to look at in your book is at the beginning of chapter 7, they first kind of talk about some of the tools that are available for constructing HTML. They mention an Adobe tool called Adobe Brackets, I think is what it's called. I had never heard of it before the book mentioned it. Is that what it's called in that first paragraph in chapter 7? No. Yeah. Adobe Brackets doesn't exist anymore. So this book's only like a couple of years old, but that's just kind of how volatile things are in the application world, right? May or may not still be around, and it's gone the way of the dodo. Adobe Brackets is no longer being supported, and they're not providing that product anymore. It was a free product for writing HTML. I don't know if it was WYSIWYG, maybe it was, or it may have just been sort of similar to Notepad++, and maybe that's why they quit offering it. They do have a WYSIWYG editor called Adobe Dreamweaver, which I've used before, which is nice. It'll give you an interface like Microsoft Word does here, where you've got all these buttons where you can, if you want a bulleted list, then you can just click the bulleted list button, right? And you can write your list. Dreamweaver will let you do that, and it will construct the HTML behind the scenes that will make it display that way in your web page. But Dreamweaver is not free. And it's like with Photoshop, there's a 7-day trial, but we're going to be in this HTML discussion longer than 7 days. So the second half of this chapter 7 is all about using Adobe Dreamweaver. I'm not going to go through that because I don't want, you guys would have to buy Dreamweaver if we're actually going to do that piece. So I really wish Adobe would give like for educational purposes, would give you like a 30-day trial, but I searched all over their website and couldn't find any way to get like a longer trial. So we're just going to use Notepad++ because one of the things that would happen when I used to use Dreamweaver is that sometimes when you're, and it's probably happened to you in Word before, you're doing something and somehow you get your content in such a state that you can't undo it. You can't figure out how to get rid of what you just did, right? And so that would sometimes happen in HTML. And unless I knew HTML and knew how to go into the guts of the page and modify the HTML by hand, there was no easy way for me to fix it in Dreamweaver. So we're gonna learn how to do it by messing with the guts of it, right? We're gonna learn to do it by hand. So that way, if you get a tool in the future that lets you can do this in this WYSIWYG atmosphere, you'll still be able to go in there, and all of these WYSIWYG tools will let you view the code. And so you'll be able to go into the code and modify it by hand if you don't want to use the visual editor. Okay. All right. So let's do. When I say hello world, have you guys ever heard that phrase before as it relates to programming? That's kind of like the first thing that you always do when you're learning a new programming language is they show you how to create a hello world app, right? Or a hello world page or something like that. So it's something that you're just your first time. Look there, the computer is saying hello world, right? So we're going to build our hello world HTML page. So what we need to do first, though, is construct this sort of HTML outline, if you will, that they've got listed for you in the book. So if you go to page, somebody tell me, let me see, can I hold someone's book? Can I look at your book real quick, Braden? So this is on page, I forgot my book today. That's why I'm having to lean on you guys. If you go to page 145, all right, you've got this kind of HTML template, if you will. And so look at page 145 there. And sort of the skeleton for your HTML page should be at the top, you've got doc type and followed by HTML. So that should appear at the top of your page. Did I do that properly? Does that look right? Yeah. I just would have expected some color coding to go on there, but they didn't do that for me, which I think is interesting. All right, and so after that, we're gonna put an HTML tag in here that sort of says, okay, everything that's between these two tags here is going to define my HTML page. Okay, so your doc type just tells the browser what type of file that it is. All right. And so this just tells the browser, hey, this is an HTML file that I'm presenting to you. So I want you to interpret it as HTML. There are other document types, and HTML is the most common. So if you don't stick this in your page, and especially if it's a file that ends with the extension .html, your browser is going to go, I'm going to assume it's HTML, and I'm going to try to present it as HTML. So it will try to guess, and if it is HTML I'm saying all that because this stuff here really is unnecessary as far as the browser is concerned. It's going to assume it's working with HTML, but as far as the standard, when you write an HTML page, you need these pieces in there. Okay, so I'm expecting you guys to have this skeleton layout of a page as you're constructing an HTML page. So first line just tells the browser what type of document it is. This is what we call an opening tag. And then this right here is the closing tag. Notice both the opening tag and the closing tag are both surrounded by less than and greater than, right? Or you might hear those referred to as angle brackets. All right. So tags are always constructed that way. HTML tags have these angle brackets around them. All right. And I know this is the opening tag because there's no slash at the beginning of it. The closing tag always begins with, after the opening angle bracket, the closing tag always begins with a forward slash. All right. I say forward slash because you also have on your keyboard a backslash. All right. The backslash should be like right above your enter key or your return key, depending on how it's listed on your keyboard. So the backslash goes in that direction. The forward key should be down in like the bottom right of your keyboard where I'm assuming that you guys all have it, where if you hit the shift key and you hit the / key, it would put a question mark. Is that what your keyboard looks like? Yep. All right, so the / is above your enter key, the / is below. All right, so your closing HTML tag is always going to begin with a /. And so tags in almost every situation will always be closed. There will be an opening version of that tag, and there will be a closing instance of that tag, okay? I know these tags are the same because the word that comes right after the beginning angle bracket is the same as the word that comes right after the / in my closing tag. So these tags go together, all right? That's the opening and closing HTML tag. The next section that you're going to have in sort of your skeleton of your HTML page is a header section. So we're going to go ahead and define an opening and closing head portion of the page. Again, this should be in your book. And so right after the head section, we're going to define the body section of your HTML page. Okay, so again, I'm going to create an opening and closing body tag. All right, this is my basic skeleton for my HTML page. So anytime I ask you guys to create an HTML page, I should expect these pieces in it. All right. So the purpose of these pieces, the head piece, we're just dividing up our page into a couple of different sections. In the head section, this is where we put information like the title of our page, or the title of our page. We might define a style sheet here, or include some JavaScript here. All right. The point is, this portion of the page is not the stuff that's visible to the user, typically. Okay. This stuff that we're like, if I'm on Google's search page here, all of this stuff that I'm seeing, the Google graphic at the top, the little search area, the search input box, these icons here that are links that go to other pages. This is all information. Also, this Gmail images, the little 9 dots up in the corner that let you launch some of the apps. This is all stuff that appears within the content portion of the page. I'm sorry, the body portion of the page. All right. So the header is kind of stuff that doesn't appear. You may have some stuff up here that's affecting the way things appear in the browser, but it's not the stuff that the user is reading or seeing. Okay, that information goes in the body. And so I say that to you because I want to show you something. If I launch this page in a browser, and I'm sorry, I meant to see, there's a way to set up Notepad++ so when you go to run it, it will launch it in the browser. I've got mine set up so that, what? That's funny. I had Chrome in here just the other day, so I could at least launch Chrome from here, but it wasn't launching that particular page in Chrome. And there's a way to set it up to where I can just hit my F5 key and it will display this page in Chrome, which is really handy. But remember, where did I tell you guys to save hello world.html? In Documents. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to launch Windows Explorer. If you don't, or File Explorer is what it's called now. If you don't have that down in the bottom here, you can just go here to where you go to search, or you could go to your Windows key and click that and just start typing in File. So if I type in File Explorer should be something that shows up near the top. And click that and launch File Explorer. And then from there, we're going to go to Documents, which is where I just saved this file. And here's my little hello world.html file that I just created. Okay, so mine's already set up. I've got a little icon, a Chrome icon next to mine. So mine's already configured to run in Chrome. Do you guys have a different icon next to yours? Mm-hmm. What does yours look like? Is it a Microsoft Edge icon maybe? Explorer maybe? Windows Explorer. Okay, that's fine. Internet Explorer, not Windows Explorer yet. Internet Explorer. I would like you to set it up to where Chrome is your default application for launching HTML pages. All right. So let's try to configure that first in case yours isn't. If yours already has Chrome defined as that, that's fine. So we're going to go to your little, does everybody have the little search area down here? All right. So type in default apps. Okay. And it should give you this option to go to default apps system settings. And so we're going to launch that. Tell me if I need to slow down or do something again if I lose anybody, okay? Now, in my default apps, there should be a default web browser defined. And I'm guessing if you go down there to that, you'll see Internet Explorer, right? All right, so we're going to click on that and choose a different app. Do you already have Chrome installed?
I do.
You do?
Yeah, there's 2 Google Chromes.
There's 2? Okay, just choose the first one and hopefully that'll work for us. All right. Is anybody having trouble finding this? Does anybody not have Chrome on their system? You don't have it? Okay. You just installed Notepad++ earlier, right? Okay, so can you download Chrome real quick? We're gonna pause the recording while we're doing that. So let's see, is there a pause? Yes. We're pausing, Levi. We'll be right back. All right, so yeah, you're just going to go to your documents folder and you're just going to double click on helloworld.html. And so that will display it in your browser. Notice this stuff that I typed in the title here, title of our page. I'm sorry, in the header section of our HTML page. Even though I'm calling it the header section, the tag you use is head, not header. All this text that I typed in here, notice it actually displayed on my page. And you're like, well, Mr. Walker, you just said that that's not for content that displays on the page. That's right. That's not what the header section is intended for. But if I put text up there, it will display it on the page, right? So your browser's kind of loose with some of the stuff. This is the standard is you don't put your content up here, right? You put the stuff that I was talking about, like the title of your page, and the title of your page is what defines what shows up on the tab here. All right. So you'd put the title, like I said, some style sheet information, which can define, the look of your page, like the background color of your page, or the font that the page uses, or the colors of bold text, or there's all kinds of things that you can adjust with cascading style sheets. Or like I said, you might have JavaScript code that runs in your header section when your page first loads, okay? I'm not going to put anything in the header section because I'm going to leave that as a homework assignment for you, because I want you to research yourself how to define a title in the header page so that your tab up here, instead of saying the name of the page, it'll actually say hello space world with an exclamation point. Okay, so that's part of your homework assignment this week. But let's talk about the body section. So the body is where your main content goes. All right. So this is typically where you're going to be typing in your text. So this is where I would say, hello world, exclamation point. And if I save my page, you can either hit Control S or just hit the little disk icon up top here, or file save if you want to use that. And I'm going to go back to the browser that I already had launched that's got hello world.html, and I'm just going to hit my refresh button there. Now my page displays hello world instead of the stuff that I had there before, right? And this is where that content should go. It should go between your body tags. So think of your body tag as the content that I want the user that's on my website to see, right? That's the stuff that shows up in this portion of your browser, okay? Is that clear to everybody? Makes sense? All right. So now let's introduce you to a few more HTML tags, just so that you're familiar with some stuff so you can do your homework. We're going to, just like we did over here, let's see if we can build something like what we had over here. If I still got, yeah. All right. So notice we had this header on our, that we defined inside Word, and we were able to click these buttons here and make it bold and make it underlined and all that kind of stuff. Well, what if I want to put a header in my web page? How would I do that using HTML tags? Well, you would use, yes? It's not working? Okay, let me check that out real quick. Let me pause the recording again. All right, so we'll just, you can research that at home, Ryan, if it doesn't work when you reboot, and see if you guys can get it to work at the house. Maybe your mom can help you out with it if it's her machine. What I would recommend doing is try logging in on her account and see if you can do it. So we're going to put a header. The header tags, there are at least 6 header tags. Looks like it's just 6. And it's all H1, H2, H3, H4, H5, H6. Okay, so H1, that would be header 1. What did it say on my Microsoft Word document? This is a header. So I'm going to write, this is a header. All right. And notice I've got my opening header tag and my closing header tag. Okay. Let me show you what it would look like if I made this a header 2 tag instead. So we'll do this one header 2. Let's save that. Let me refresh it. So if I go back to my browser, so now here's my first header. That's my header 1 tag. Notice it's bigger than the header 2 tag. And if I did header 3 and header 4 and header 5 and header 6, they would get increasingly smaller, right? Or decreasingly smaller, maybe is the way I should say that. They would get smaller as you went on down the list. So I'm going to make this a header 1, so it'll really be big and stand out from the rest of the content on my page so that it's obvious that it should be a header. And then for the hello world here, it's just a paragraph on my page. Yes.
What's the shortcut to like only select everything on that one line?
To only select that one line? Well, I just highlighted it. I just dragged my mouse across there. Oh, okay. But you can also do, if you click on the end, you could do Shift Home. So clicking at the end of the line and then Shift Home will select that whole line. Or if you click at the beginning of the line, you can click Shift End and it'll highlight to the end of the line. Okay. So that's our header tag. My hello world is just a paragraph on my tags on my page. So I'm going to surround it with a paragraph tag. So I'm going to put an opening paragraph tag before hello world and a closing paragraph tag after hello world. Okay. So that defines this portion here as a paragraph on my page, distinct from the header that's on my page. All right. So I'm going to save that and reload my page, and it should look the same. It does, because the browser was already assuming hello world was a paragraph. I've just explicitly defined it as that now. But I want you to notice this. If I type in hello world, and on my next line, I hit enter again and say, how are you doing today? And then I'm going to go down several lines and say everything okay. Right, and put some more spaces in there. And if I save that and refresh my page, look at what the browser does. Just puts it all on one line, one after the other. All right. So that's an important point. In HTML, space doesn't really matter. All right. You typically spaces don't matter. If I hit the enter key and put something on a new line, HTML will just say, I'm going to just display that as a single space. So at most, what you do may introduce a single space into it, but that's about the extent of it. So the reason why that's important is because then I can that means I can do some things to kind of make my page look a little more, be a little easier to read. So for example, I'm going to highlight this. I'm going to take all of this area here that's inside my body, and I'm going to indent it like this, just by hitting tab at the beginning of those lines, so that I can clearly see this is all the area that is part of my body on my page, okay? The body portion of my page. And I'm actually going to put a tab here and say, okay, this is all the content that appears within my paragraph tag, right? I could do the same thing for my header if I wanted to. So I could say, this is the text that actually appears within my header tag. So you can use spacing to kind of help you be able to more easily see the different portions of the page. If I refresh my page, it doesn't look any different. It looks exactly the same. So your assignment for this week, so that's kind of a brief overview, right? Just kind of basic skeleton of a web page, a couple of key portions, the header and the paragraph. We haven't looked at anything like what we had here, where we had different color text, where we had subscripts, where we have bullet points. Those are all kind of more advanced topics that we're not going to go into today, but you will have a simple HTML assignment that'll be due in 2 weeks, right? Where I'm going to let you guys do a little bit of research online to learn a couple of HTML tags. Some is going to be tags we've already used here, the header tags, the paragraph tag. I'm going to let you learn how to use the title tag. But I'm going to direct you to some pages on W3 Schools. They've got an excellent HTML tutorial to where you can find out a little bit more about those tags. Okay. Any questions? No? All right. Well, hey, most importantly, you guys have an awesome week off, right? Anybody going anywhere exciting?
Going skiing.
Oh yeah, me too. Where are you going?